Welcome, everyone. You are about to embark on a journey through the universe as you indulge in this extraordinary essence of enlightened, empowered, evolved. Let the show begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Just in time. Greetings, everyone. I'm Luke Bryan Smith, and welcome to Enlightened, Empowered, Evolved, where we educate, motivate, and liberate you through enlightening dialogues, empowering music, and evolving content. I know everyone's doing well. Excuse me. I know everyone's doing well, and everything is unfolding perfectly. I'm excited yet again because I have another amazing guest who is a former professor at Pepperdine University, who is also a world traveler, an author, and just so much more. But without further ado, allow me to introduce to you Mr. Dennis Torres. How are you doing today, Dennis?
Excellent, Luke. Good morning to you.
Yes, yes, yes. I am a firm believer that time is one of our most precious assets. And for you to choose to spend some of your time here with me, I just want to extend my sincerest gratitude to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to meet you and nice to be here and have the opportunity to speak with you and your audience.
Yes, yes. You know what? Just so much, as I mentioned prior to us going live, is intriguing about your write-up that I received. It's amazing. Let's just get right into it. Professor. Now, I know you were specific professors. Can you elaborate on that at Pepperdine University? Can you just give us a little bit of insight on that?
Okay. Well, what comes to mind is I would have never predicted I would end up there because, frankly, I never liked school when I was going through school. And the reason why is because I had a very curious mind. I always wanted to get out and travel and meet people and see things and experience things. And I was bored most of the time in classes. And so I spent 30 years at Pepperdine. I was the head of real estate operations for him during that 30 years. And I also taught in the full-time MBA program. And I taught 3 different classes in that program. One was called Negotiation and Resolution of Business Disputes. Another one is a Global Finance. And part of that class is I took the class to Washington, D.C., to the World Bank and the IMF and other institutions. And we also went to New York City and visited Goldman Sachs and Deutsche Bank and several of the big investment houses. So, and the third class was called Acquiring Wealth, Power, Success, Morally and Ethically. And I took that and created a novel out of it. And I write my novels are autobiographical, but I write them as novels so that people won't sue me because they don't like, what I might say or say about them or an event. And so I always write them as a novel, and there's a disclaimer that it's all fiction. So whatever. But the course, I'll speak about that one first. The course, which is the title of the book, subtitled Acquiring Wealth, Power, Success, Morally and Ethically, was the most popular course in the full-time MBA program at Pepperdine University.
Wow. Wow.
And it came about because the faculty asked me, or the dean, I should say, asked me to teach a course on ethics. And having never done so, I reached out to other professors of ethics at different universities and asked them what syllabus they used and what textbooks they used and any thoughts. And they were very helpful. But doing my own research, I read that by the time a student reaches or a person reaches graduate school, they've been told and exposed to right and wrong so many times, it's worthless to just keep regurgitating what's right and what's wrong. And I didn't think there would be much interest in the class unless it was made mandatory, which it wasn't at that point. So I decided I would take a different approach to teaching ethics. And that is, instead of this is right and this is wrong, that actions have consequences. And when you choose the action, you also choose the consequence.
Absolutely.
And about 50% of my students in all the classes I taught were foreign nationals. And they came from cultures where right and wrong conflicted with other cultures, right or wrong. So this was a much better way for them to understand it. And for instance, some of my Asian students, particularly from China, plagiarism was not considered wrong. Okay, they had a concept. They were two driving concepts of that, and of course, it was very wrong at Pepperdine. Okay,
Right.
the two driving forces for that is one, the only way to get into a real good higher education institution in China was to get the highest grade. Okay, and going into there. So how you got it was not as important as getting it. Because if you didn't get high grades and didn't get into that, you were shamed and your family were shamed.
Right.
Okay, the second part of that is they had a concept, why reinvent the wheel? Okay, so to teach that plagiarism, which Pepperdine wanted me to teach, of course, is ethically wrong, I just say, if you choose this, these are the consequences that might come of it. And when you choose the action, you choose the consequence. And the other part of that title was that most MBA students, if not all of them, but most of them for sure, were interested in getting wealthy. Okay,
Right.
and so I put that into the title too, acquiring wealth. And that drove the students into the class and made it a very, very popular class. And in that book and in the class, I talk about what I believe to be and not only me, many other people, the pathway to great wealth. And wealth we defined as, if your income stopped today and you maintained your lifestyle, how long could you last? So if you're making 10 million a year and spending 15 or 12 or whatever, and you had because you had the expenses of that, you're not going to last long, so you're not wealthy. Okay. Nope. So we have very sound advice on how I believe, and I brought to class how even if you were making minimum wage, you could acquire wealth. And I have many examples of that. I also brought in guest speakers who had acquired wealth starting off with minimum wage. So anyway, that's the basis for the book, the course. And you mentioned in your podcast here, enlightened, empowered, and involved. My objectives in writing are to entertain, to educate, and to provoke thought. So I'll leave that. You can ask the next question because I could go on forever there. You know, I'm very enthusiastic.
Please do. Please do. Please do.
So in my teachings and in my writings, those are my three objectives in writing: entertain, educate, and the education part is I try to bring out things that people never thought of. Okay.
Right.
That it just never occurred to them. And the provoked thought is, as I told the students, do not believe me as a professor. All I want you to do is consider these things that you never thought of. Try them in your own life, and if they work for you, keep them.
Right.
And if they don't work for you, find something else that does work for you.
Right.
Because nobody has all the answers, you know. And we discussed a lot of things in class that people just never thought of, and it never occurred to them. I mean, sometimes simple things, you know, like one of the questions I always like to ask the students, and the question wasn't as important as the lesson. And if I say to you, who was the first president of the United States? Well, you know, what are you going to say? George Washington.
Yes.
So then I would tell the students, Google who was the first president of the United States. And they find out that George Washington was, I don't know, something like eighth president.
Eighth president, yes. Yes.
Okay, that the first president was a guy named Hanson.
Right.
George Washington was the first president under the U.S. Constitution, but there were several presidents ahead of him under the Articles of Confederation, which was really the beginning of the country. And it's not that important, but it gets you thinking, what was I told in school that I believe that may not be exactly true?
Right.
Christopher Columbus was another one.
Right.
Okay. We were always told Columbus discovered America, and we actually still have Columbus Day, which
Right.
some places now call what, Indigenous Peoples Day or something.
Right.
But did Columbus discover America? Well, if you research that too, he never set foot in what we call America, the US of A, and we think of that way. He landed in the Bahamas, okay, and Central America, but he never set foot here. And also that the Vikings were here 500 years before him.
Right.
But so why do we believe that? And why is that still taught in school?
Right.
Because somebody wrote a book, a very popular author wrote a book about the voyages of Christopher Columbus, and his fiction became truth.
Right.
Okay. And again, there are other things like that we just, again, to provoke thought, why I believe. Another one, for example, was Paul Revere. Okay, we all know the story of Paul Revere. He rode to warn the British are coming, the British are coming. That was a false narrative as well. Okay, he never did that ride. So that came out of a poem called The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. Again, a popular author wrote a poem called The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. I think it was Longfellow, but I'm not certain, talking extemporaneously. It's in the book anyway.
Right.
And his fiction became truth. Patrick Henry. What did Patrick Henry say? Let's see, you went to American schools, I take it. Do you remember Patrick Henry?
Yeah, I've heard of him. I don't
Give me
remember
liberty.
quite who. I can't put the circumstance with the name, but I do. I have heard of Patrick Henry.
Yeah, we're taught in school that he stood up at the Continental Convention and said, "Give me liberty or give me death."
Give me death.
Okay, that also was fiction. Okay, there were no reporters at that meeting in Richmond, Virginia, I believe it was, and a reporter a couple of days later asked somebody who said, "I was there," and he said something like this. Okay, but it became the truth as a narrative. And in fact, I've been in Richmond, and they actually charge tourists a fee to sit in that church where the Continental Congress was supposedly held, and they reenact it with the character being Patrick Henry saying those same words. Again, it's only to provoke thought and say, why do I believe what I believe?
Right.
Okay.
Right. If you would allow me to just elaborate a bit on that as well, and um, display my connection to just that whole narrative, that's has led to where I am today in regard to the show and this podcast, in regard to who I am, is because I started to question everything in regard to spiritual beliefs, in regard to and I would say like religious beliefs, in regard to just everything, just the things that were indoctrinated. I now know in me through school, through my parents, everything. And so I think I know that's a very amazing way to be, is to question everything. And I like how you said, and excuse me if I misquote you, but don't believe me, but I'm just sparking the thought basically for you to look for yourself. And that's exactly what I pride myself in. I don't come across, or I don't, at least it's not my intentions to come across on this show as if I'm a doctor or a know-it-all person. My intentions are to share knowledge, insight, and for people to take what they feel is useful and discard what they feel is not. My job here, I feel, is not to tell anyone what to think, but to empower them to seek their own, to just spark them, to do their own research, really. And the
And that's
challenge,
exactly it. You
yes,
want to inspire people.
inspire people.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to inspire people to think. That's it. Not to think what I tell them, I'll share from my perspectives, and that's all I feel I can do is just from my experiences, from my current level of consciousness, to share that and then to interact with others that are doing the same. But other than that, I always encourage people to try. I'll share something that I feel that's successful for me. The way I think. The affirmations I speak every day, the reading I do every day. I always read books on different various subjects to just elevate myself and to make me aware, especially literature that seems a little bit challenging to me, because I just feel that just motivates not only thought but just exercising my brain to pull it in ways like, wow, this, it's amazing. So yes, I thank you for affirming that, here. And as there's a quote that Bruce Lee says, just like that's along the lines of what you said. He said, "Take what is useful and
Mhm.
discard what is not." Yes, and be like water. So I'm open to listen to, and I'm not putting anyone down, but there are people that I've come across in my experiences that aren't very open. They're so indoctrinated into what they feel they know or believe that they're anything that challenges that is sort of it's uncomfortable for them, because in my perspective they have attached their identity to that belief, and they don't want that shaken up.
I'm glad you said that because I encountered that in the class, and I would tell
Right.
them, I would tell the students that uh, choose what works for you, but at least you choose it rather than somebody has chosen it for you.
Right.
Okay. And because people, like, for instance, one of the questions I would ask in that class is, and Pepperdine is a Christian university, so it attracts a lot of Christian people. And again,
Right.
the class again was Muslims, everything, and 50% of, as I say, foreign nationals. So I had atheists, I had Muslims, I had Christians, I had Jews, I had whatever. So one of the questions I would ask the class is, if you were adopted out as an infant to a family with a different culture and a different religion, for instance, you're Christian here and you were adopted out to a Muslim family, would you have the same belief you had today?
Right.
Well, the answer was pretty obvious, but some of the students, for instance, said to me, I would like to think that I would have found my way back to Jesus.
Mm,
Okay, again, my job is only to provoke thought. Okay, and fine, if that's your comfort level and that's what you want to do, fine. One of the I always brought up a couple of examples, and one example that I used in that is there's a story, and the book is called well, let me tell the story first, then it will pop in my mind. Oh, Identical Strangers. That's the name
okay.
of the book, Identical Strangers.
Rangers.
And it's a book about the identical twin sisters who were born in Mexico
Hmm.
and adopted out to two different families. And the shortcut of that is one was in the NYU and the other one was another college in New York that I can't remember which one it was at the moment, but somebody knew both of them. A guy knew both of them. And he kept telling them, you ought to meet my friend over here. You guys are so much alike, or whatever. Long story short, he introduced them. They discovered they were identical twin sisters, had never known of the other one. Uh, but one was brought up, and they had a lot in common:
Right.
gestures, family,
Right.
parents, all these strange things that identical twins may share. And you say, where's that come from? But one was brought up in Jewish family and the other was brought up in a Christian family. And they were so invested in that, they that sort of created a distance in them, and that's why the book is Identical Strangers. Okay, so I use that example in the class where we talked about if you were raised somewhere else, would you have the exact same thoughts? And it goes from politics and customs and other beliefs and anything else. And
Right.
again, just something to think about.
Right. It's your environment. And as you mentioned, a lot of times we don't think about that. We don't think that I think the way that I do because of where I am, the location in which I reside, the culture and whatnot, and it all has to do with what you think, the information you've been exposed to, everything. It creates who you have become. You have taken all this into your identity, and that's why I feel it's important, especially, and not to throw my you know uh 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 try to indoctrinate anyone, or I can't find the word I'm looking for, but I believe that it's good to expose yourself to many different cultures, to travel to different information. Eh, eh, yes, just to see what really, get out of your own way, what resonates with you. And I know it can be difficult, especially if you compare everything to your core beliefs, but yes, I'm just thankful that I'm in a state right now where I'm just open to just different uh, information and beliefs, and just yes.
Well, we're on the same wavelength there. Another
Yes.
book I wrote, a novel that I wrote, is called um, The Amazon of Ray Goldberg Rivera.
Mm,
And it is a chronicle of my trips. I was a Vietnam vet, and when I came back from Vietnam, I needed a job. And I looked in those days, jobs were in the want ads in the newspaper. And the only jobs I saw was like selling insurance on commission, or whatever. And, Vietnam was such a powerful experience. I wasn't about to put on a suit and tie and start selling insurance. But I found in the travel section of that same want ads newspaper, somebody said, want to explore the Amazon. Now that sounded interesting to me. So I went there and met the woman who put that ad in, and she was a member of the World Explorers Club. And for a fee, she put you together with somebody else and told you how you can go and explore the Amazon and make money doing that. Well, I didn't, frankly, I could care less about the money. And by the way, some of the ideas, just for your listeners may be curious. One was you could dig up pre-Columbian artifacts there and smuggle them back and sell them. Very easy to do. You could go to Bogota and buy emeralds on the black market from the people who mine emeralds and then sell those. You can dive in the river there for gold in the Amazon. None of that really appealed to me, although it gave me an excuse for going on the trip. So I decided I was going to go. I had a 1962 Volkswagen, which I left with my parents when I was in Vietnam. And I decided I'm going to drive my Volkswagen down to the country of Panama from LA and sell it there, because she told me I can get twice as much for it in Panama as I could in the United States, which turned out not to be true, but still. And then she ended up, long story short, she put me together with two people who wanted to go with me, and it would share the expense of the trip. One of them was a very religious, Bible thumping girl from the southern states, and she was somewhat attractive, so that was fine with me. And the other was a early 20s California surfer, the same image, the blonde hair, whatever, that had never been out of California.
right.
Okay, so we had three strangers here. We got in my Volkswagen and drove to the country of Panama. Great adventures along the way, great discoveries of cultures and type of things. And then she stayed in Panama. She found another religious group in Panama that she stayed with. And then he went to Ecuador with me, and then he had to come back to the United States. And then I went on to live in the Amazon.
Wow.
And I hired a fellow in this Iquitos that was a native. He was born and raised in the Amazon, and I asked him to school me on how I could survive.
Right.
And I spent months living alone in the Amazon, and then
Wow.
went on to explore much of the rest of South America. So that book contains my observations, my experiences, and my observations are always out of curiosity. You know, there was just so many things I learned there. Once going through Mexico, one of the towns, I've been in Mexico several times before, but
I just got back from there.
where were
Sorry.
you? Where were you? No.
Yes, we were in Yucatan in Merida. That's
Yeah,
where
I like that.
I purchased the shirt. Yucatan.
Well,
Mhm.
everywhere you learn, there's a stereotypical thing about Mexican labor as being lazy, but
Right,
what I discovered, of course, is they're not lazy. They just balance life.
right,
Uh,
right,
When you work, and when you play. And instead of, they sit around there on a lunch hour, have a little lunch, play a little cards or whatever.
right,
They know how to relax. We don't see that here. It's usually a frantic something or other, where
right,
your work is still in your head.
right,
Okay. And of course, a lot of travel that I did within third world countries. And I always marveled, especially along in this trip, that if something breaks down, if your car broke down here, you're cursing, your problems, you get on your cell phone, who's going to call and get me out of it? In these countries, they don't get upset. It breaks down, it breaks down.
breaks
Okay.
down.
And they can they can go into the woods and find a stick there and fix anything. Okay. And they never had any education. I saw that so many times in that trip.
Right,
It's never, I look at the people here. There's a cartoon once that I keep it, of a man coming down the escalator in a shopping center. The escalator stops and he's standing on the escalator yelling, "Stop, somebody help me, help me." The escalator stopped because he wouldn't even think of walking down that. Okay. Why? Because it doesn't occur to him. And here in these countries, I've seen so many buses break down, trucks break down, trains break down, and they run off into the woods and come back with this and that, whatever, and fix it.
right.
Okay.
Yes, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. And
So
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
it's very adaptive. My cleaning woman here, housekeeper, she was 15 when she came from Mexico, didn't
Right,
have any formal education. Okay. Not only does she speak English, and not only did she get her citizenship here,
right,
okay, but there's nothing in this house that she can't fix. If she sees something needs grouting, she grouts it. If board breaks, she knows how to fix it. If the washer or dryer breaks, don't call a repairman, she can fix it. Okay, she's amazing,
right,
utterly amazing, and no education.
right,
Okay, no formal education, I should say.
right.
So I'm a big fan of third world countries, how people balance their lives and
Yes.
live their lives. Okay, so especially
Yes.
compared to this.
And you mentioned education, and believe me, this is not um anything, it's not meant to devalue um you were a professor, but I always think like this now. Um Formal education can be of value, but self-education is priceless. I say that.
Oh, I'm a
And
big fan of that. Believe me,
yes,
I never intended to become a professor.
yes,
Okay,
yes. No, no, it's nothing about that, because I believe that also that formal education, like I said, it can be of value. It depends on what you're doing. And in your case, especially, it, it it from what I gather, it created who you are. It helped to build who you are. That was a necessary step for you to take, and you helped a lot of people. So yes, yes.
well, I wasn't being defensive in it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I know.
I think what drove me to it was exactly what you're saying. I saw a very pragmatic need for pragmatic education
Right,
versus just an academic one.
right.
Um, it's the same thing uh, um, in one of my books called Not Far from the Ocean.
Okay,
It picks up when I got back from my Amazon trip, and the first job I got was with the phone company
right,
as an out rep. and my territory was the I don't know, African American. I never like to use black, African American, all this stuff,
Right,
because I don't
right,
like to
right,
divide people. In fact, when I was at
right.
Pepperdine, they had a black student union at Pepperdine. I said, they shouldn't have that. I
No,
said,
I don't think so either.
what if I propose a white student union? People will be outraged.
Raged, yeah,
Okay.
right,
I said,
right.
you want people to be just people. Don't have these divisions.
Yes.
Okay. But that didn't go anywhere.
No, I think so. I think in the same terms as you. When you start highlighting, certain, colors, you just keep that fresh in people's heads that we are this, you are that. It's a lot of division. So we have to figure out a better way to do that where it's, you know,
Just
yeah,
people.
it's just people.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know I think the only limiting thing there, if you want to describe somebody, it's very easy to say, oh, is a black man or an African
Right.
American. So
Right.
you know what it is. Just, but on the other hand, I'd say she's a blonde, it's a redheaded gal or something,
Right. 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 Right.
But as a description, yeah, but so there's a fine line how we're going to get beyond it. The good news is,
Right.
though, that I saw my students, and one of the reasons I taught was because I was learning from them.
Right.
I taught in the undergraduate program. Actually, I was a sub. I filled in for professors that had a problem, and I didn't like undergraduate because the undergraduates just want to know what's on the test. I wanted to go to the graduates where they were out in the workforce. They came from different countries, and I could learn from them.
Right. That's amazing.
And I
Yes.
did learn. I wanted them to tell me, I don't believe that, professor, or this is the way we do it and all that.
Right.
Anyway, when I got into that outrep job, my job was in those days that the California Public Utilities Commission said to the phone company, you cannot turn off somebody's phone for non-payment unless you notify them in person. So my
Oh,
job was
wow.
to go out and notify them in person.
Person.
And my boss who hired me, and my boss there was an African-American guy.
All right.
And I said, why don't you hire an African-American guy? It's all African-American people there. He said, because they wouldn't respect him. Okay.
Oh, wow.
His authority.
Yes, yes, that's true. Yeah, we're down to about 3 minutes just to let you
Oh,
know.
no. Okay.
Yes,
Well,
yes, we're down to
anyway,
about 3 minutes. Yes.
I learned a lot in that experience too, that taught me many lessons about myself and about the community. And and I ended up dating a girl from that community who said she wouldn't date me unless I went to church with her. And one of the things, just quickly, and I went to her church, and she was very religious, which was a all African-American church.
Right.
And I
Right.
was shocked when I walked in to see that they had a big effigy of Jesus there, and Jesus was white.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, where did that come from?
I grew up witnessing that myself. And
Worshiping a white guy. Where did you
yeah,
know?
that's why that type of,
Exactly.
it's ingrained. Yes.
Yeah.
And it was on purpose to do that. So
Yeah, of course.
yes, I know
Of
that now.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, we're down to about 2 minutes, and we didn't get into a lot of things. And I would definitely love to have you back so we can talk about so many. You had over 64 jobs, just how that affected you and things like that. But quickly before we leave, I would like to know, how can we find your books? Are they on Amazon and
Yeah, they're
they under
basically,
Dennis Torres?
yes, Dennis Torres. The easiest is, of course, Amazon. Okay. And I collected them into a group called A Life Well Lived. That way, all four of the novels are in one section. But
Okay.
the first one is the Amazon of Ray Goldberg Rivera. The second one is Not Far from the Ocean. And then I wrote one on my experiences in Vietnam called There Are No Good Giants. Okay. And it covers not so much the battles, but just the day-to-day living in Vietnam, and you know, the what can I say, the profits that drove the Vietnam War. And then, of course, the course, and I'm working on a fifth novel that deals with the judicial system in the United States, how it no longer serves the average person because the cost of litigation is so high that if somebody stole $100,000 from loot, you couldn't afford to take them to court. It cost you $200,000 to try to get the $100,000 back. Okay.
Amazing. Amazing. Yes. And yeah, go on Amazon, everyone. Look up those books under the author, Dennis Torres. Thank you, sir,
Thank
for
you.
engaging with me today, and appreciate everyone. Be sure to check out I'll make sure that the information is in the description of this video. Enlighten, Empowered, Evolve. Thank you, everyone.
And thank
See
you,
you
Lou.
soon.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.